Super Senpai Podcast. Welcome to the Super Senpai Podcast. This is a weekly, episodic tokusatsu-related podcast where we're talking about big wrecks in spandex. I'm Pat.
And I'm Grant. And with us this week to talk about episode 12 of Lupinranger vs. Patranger is Mello. Welcome to the show, Mello.
Hi, first time robot. I don't know what any of this is. That's me. Are there even robots?
You're going to have to find out. That's part of the surprise. Who knows, really? No. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Of course.
So, tell the people a little bit of your background with tokusatsu and various spandex fighting people.
Okay. Every time that an anime does like a parody of it, I think to myself, but I really like that music and that style, though. Like, what if I just watched one of those instead of this anime? But I never do. I know that there are belts, and if anyone ever shows me a belt thing, they're super excited about it. I assume it's from one of these shows. I know that there are robots. I just learned that. And I know that everything's pretty wacky.
I mean, for someone who's not seen very much, that's basically the vibe. It's better than anime. It's crazy and wacky and fun.
I didn't say
that.
That's it. Don't tell the internet that I said that.
No, but well, that's great. This is going to be, man. It really, honestly, I don't really know if it matters at all what happens tonight. You're going to be in for something. It's part of the joy for us as longtime Toku fans is every time you hit play, you're like, what am I going to see? What am I about to see?
Always a treat.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one more thing I know. I really like the show Sentai After 5, where they're just drinking at a bar.
Is this a parody thing, a real thing? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is.
Oh
no, we brought it up. We brought it up before. I think we recommended it to might have been Tom Asnable.
Oh, that's right. Okay, maybe I missed the title on that then, or my memory is just super bad. Either one is equally likely.
So I watched like everything I could find of that on YouTube one night with a friend, without having ever watched any actual Sentai, unless you count Power Rangers. And I think I knew enough from Power Rangers to get all the jokes in that.
Yeah, Power Rangers is one of those, like, it's close, and as someone who likes both, like, they're definitely in a similar vein, but, Power Rangers is definitely kind of its own thing. But Toku, if you can, pick up what something like Power Rangers putting down, I think you'll be fine. So, Pat, do we want to prep him in any way? Like, do we want to tell him even what's going on?
I think just the gist of it, because it's going to be a little bit of explaining while we're watching if we don't. I mean, I'm sure we'll do that anyway, but just
I was gonna take it all in silently, because otherwise I'll just be saying what every 5 seconds.
That's also okay. That is also fine too. I guess just as a quick breakdown for it, this season is a little bit unusual because typically they start off with one team with varying numbers from 3 to 5. Last year it was 9 because they're insane. But this year there's 2 teams of 3. One is a Phantom Thief team and the other team is a Global Police team, and they're both have different goals in relation to this sort of mafia monster team. Okay.
So this show is Super Sentai?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because that's your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
Does Lupin just mean thief in Japanese, or are they just using that name like a knowing wink?
I think there's just a very strong association with the famous Phantom Thief Arsène Lupin.
Right.
Especially with, Lupin the Third being
yeah.
as big a thing as it is.
You know what? I forgot that was an actual thing, and not just Lupin the Third.
Yeah,
right.
I forgot there was actually a thief, even though I just played Persona 5 for 350 hours.
Yep.
Well, if you like Persona 5 too, there's going to be some.
I didn't like
some.
Oh,
well,
well.
I'll probably like this more.
Okay, well, there's
That's
definitely
fair.
some visual ticks that it pulls from some of that, at least.
Okay.
I mean, at least that's what I've heard. I've not played any of the Persona games myself, but some people are like, "Hey, this looks like Persona 5."
So, what part of the season is this? How far in are we?
about a fourth.
A fourth? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just about.
that would put us at 4 times 12 would be 48 because
Yep.
I got the math down. So
That's right.
So it's about a fourth of the way through, and it's been quite the ride. Though compared to Toei's other show right now, Kamen Rider, it's practically old-fashioned by comparison, but it is very different for Sentai. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I mean, we probably don't want to prime the pump too much. I just kind of want to hear your reactions as we go.
Yeah,
Sure.
This will be fun.
All right. Well, then, without further ado, I suppose we should probably boot this thing up and let's get going.
Yes, sir.
この番組は楽しい時を作るグループ PRT と TheComicFiend とご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
And we are back. So that was an interesting one to bring you in on, Mello. But
Sure.
yeah, we'll do a quick little recap. There wasn't a whole lot to say here, but basically, we got a blue focused episode, kind of him interacting with, I guess, a regular citizen, a little bit of goofy Phantom Thief antics, and I guess not a whole lot in terms of Patranger besides Pat Kaiser at the end. Kind of a slow one this time.
Was that slow?
I
I mean, it was literally about going fast.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yeah, for an episode that's supposed to be about going fast, it was, I think maybe we had our expectations a bit high for this week, coming off of the last few weeks.
Yeah, this one, I'm curious to hear, Mello, what you thought, but, I mean, I guess, Pat, you and I are sort of old hats. So, Mello, what did you think, having zero context for this, other than it might be like Power Rangers?
Well, it was pretty shocking when all the special effects kicked in at once, because it started with a run-of-the-mill, normally shot scene with the boy running, and then it went to the police station where there was a robot screaming. There was a non-Japanese man looking like he was there to be the non-Japanese man, and there was this colorful police station. Everybody was screaming, and they were saying "Gangala." There's a Gangala. So yeah, it was a lot. But after that, it leveled out a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to take in at certain points. Pat, how did you feel about this one?
I feel like the tone was, I was looking for kind of like an exciting tone for this one, coming kind of hot off of the last couple of kind of zany and wacky episodes. And this one took a bit more of like a somber route, which is, I guess, kind of interesting. But overall, I think the energy level was pretty low for what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I think this one felt a little, probably of the episodes we've done, this is probably the most run-of-the-mill one, I would say, quote-unquote. This one felt the most like a pretty standard Sentai episode, although I still think I net enjoyed it overall. I really enjoyed the fight choreography this week. We got a lot of really good transformed fights for the Rangers, a lot of really exciting kind of acrobatics, and the sort of pseudo gunplay, pseudo fisticuffs that they do, I think was really on point this week. The focusing on, like you were saying, focusing on Lupin Blue with this very sad tale about loss and about believing in fairy tales even though there's nothing really to them, and a child, learning to run for his friend who suffered a tragedy. Like, it was definitely kind of a downer in that sense, and there wasn't necessarily a huge upswing. I mean, the kid learned to believe in himself, I suppose, but that wasn't really, it didn't seem to quite, like, he learned to believe that he could run on the track team, which, I mean, I guess that is a victory, certainly, but maybe not quite enough to undo some of the just sort of the low energy elements of the rest of the episode. But I still enjoyed it overall just because of the fights, I think, primarily.
Yeah, I think a Phantom Thief character does have to be a little dark, like a little legitimately dark.
Yeah. Every now and then you got to be a little sad because you're a Phantom Thief.
Yeah, for it to work.
Yeah, it's like contractual, It can't be all up and up. But Blue, I mean, it's definitely, Blue has been kind of cold, and I think the the overarching thematic seems to be he's trying to get this kid to believe in the power of this, magic item, which we didn't really get context for you for this, Mello, but the woman in those flashbacks, his fiance, passed away. We mentioned it throughout the episode, but one of the reasons that the thieves are involved at all in this is because they were told, by the way, if you collect all the pieces of this collection, you can make a wish. So he was definitely sort of trying to get the kid to believe in the item, because in a way he's trying to convince himself to still believe, because he's kind of losing faith a little bit that he maybe can even do this, that he can bring her back at all, because they haven't really been given much to go on. So that was, I think, an element there, but it's definitely still kind of a bummer.
Do they have to steal them all from monsters?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
The monsters are hoarding them. Either we don't know how they've come across them or what exactly they're doing them besides attempt to wreak havoc, which I think is what we're looking for at this point. Like, what's their goal? What do they want?
Right. We've been waiting this whole time and been asking for it this whole time. Like, when are we going to know what the villains want with these pieces? I mean, I guess we could assume a wish, but
I don't know. That one guy just seemed like he liked going fast.
He did have to go fast.
Maybe they just enjoy the powers. But I do have one important question that I realized during that last fight was unanswered. Are those cops the only cops? Are there normal cops?
These are the monster cops, I guess. The ones that focus on
like
they're
stars
monster
from
global
Resident
police,
Evil.
So
Okay.
Basically.
Okay. They're the global police, but there's 3.
Yep. And they focus entirely on Japan. Who knows? Maybe there's ganglers all over the world. We haven't gone quite global yet, besides, I guess, that French lady from a few episodes back.
Yeah, that's
who happened to have one of the pieces as a jewelry item. It is odd to think about Japan sort of... I mean, of course it is, because it's a Japanese show, but to think about Japan as sort of the base for all these things happen when you have sort of a weird kind of global or alien invasion and they're going to focus on Japan. Like, what else is happening in the world?
The implication I've gotten is that they're the Japanese branch of the global police, but they just happen to have the Versus Changers, and we've not really been told how many Versus Changers there are, but there's clearly a lot out there, and clearly some they don't know about, because the Patrangers were surprised that the Lupinrangers had Versus Changers, and the Lupinrangers were surprised that the Patrangers had Versus Changers, so it's definitely kind of implied that they're relatively new or shocking, and that there could be more out there. So I don't know. I've just sort of kind of read it as like, well, this is the Japanese branch of this operation. So, so Mello, how did this pan out in comparison with some of your memories, fond or not so fond, of Power Rangers?
I barely have any. I feel like the fighting looked much better in this, which I guess makes sense since it's been years. And I definitely remember the feeling of only one thing you actually need to pay attention to in this scene is happening, but everyone else is moving in a way that makes it look like more is happening. It's very well done here. Like we were both saying, I guess, is it looks like everyone's having a lot of fun and doing a lot of cool stuff, but the action is still focused. So the choreography actually really impressed me, as well as the special effects. And I was telling you beforehand, Patrick, that it was that whatever I had watched before was not really impressing me. The Kamen Rider Forze, something about the frame rate felt off. It looked cheap, but I loved all the effects stuff here. But I guess it was more puppets and like actual props here, somewhat. Or I'm not trying to say puppets. I'm saying models. It's more models, probably.
The practical effects, yeah.
There was a puppet. Let's be honest. Good Striker's a puppet. There's a lot going on when he's on screen. But I think that whenever they decide to go giant in a Kamen Rider series, which I think happens in the first episode, no, Power Dizer doesn't show up for a few. But whenever they decide to do that in a Kamen Rider series, it feels out of place for me personally. So, I mean, Grant, you're getting a bit of that in Build, like in the earlier episodes when they decide to make all of the mini mechs lock into a giant human shaped. It's just weird. I'm not a fan of those usually whenever that kind of thing shows up, but I accept that is part of what we're going to see in this kind of show. And I feel like Sentai tends to handle scale better.
Yeah.
At least sort of selling you that this giant thing is up here.
Yeah. None of the special effects bothered me. I liked them.
Yeah, and I think that's the key that really stands out, is that the all the practical effects are just so enjoyable, and the having the hard suits, and even though we have to cut back and forth because this week they used the yo-yo cycle attack, which means they have to keep cutting back to CG, just seeing the hard suits run around and the explosions, I really like the shot. There was kind of a tracking shot where the camera's going to the left and there's all these little model trees going past in the front while the monsters fight in the background. Just like really good shots. I really enjoy that kind of thing. And I feel like when that goes well, it really leverages Sentai's unique strength in that it assumes like, well, we're doing the big monster thing. We're always doing the big monster thing. We're never not going to do the big monster thing.
Yeah. I was ragging on the look of the bracelet. It just looks like the most prop toy thing ever, but I'm doing it in fun because I really enjoyed the fact that it was just there in this very serious scene where it would look extremely suspicious to this boy's instructor that he suddenly came with this giant toy on his wrist, and to his friend as well. But it was just there, looking great.
That's the key, really, is that almost universally with Tokusatsu, one of the things that's so great about it is that it commits. Doesn't matter if in the year of our Lord 2018, this child is wearing on a high definition television program what is very clearly a plastic bracelet that has been spray painted gold. Like, not even like that clearly was not even originally gold. Someone was like, hey, we need this for the next shot. Just spray it, man. But like, no one in the scene ever acknowledges it. No one winks at the camera. No one at any point goes like, man, that looks like a toy.
And you could tell they put a lot of effort into the props that aren't just going to be there for one episode. I think that's the difference, is that it was just
right.
the literal plot device for this episode. But, you know, when they pull out their cool weapons and everything, those look great.
Yeah.
A neat thing to note on this week's episode, since we... somebody had pointed this out a few episodes back, but the MacGuffin each episode, I think, tends to be a prop from a previous season. They don't outright say it, but they've like kit bashed it or sort of reworked it to look like something else. Mm-hmm. And it's painful to recognize this one because it's the transforming device from TheComicFiend, I think, just on sight. That's my guess. I think, Grant, you agree with me on this.
Yeah, that's what it looks
like. But the fact that they took not one, but two of the TheComicFiend aura changers and they turned them into this thing. It hurts just a little bit, but maybe they got a cheap one. I don't know.
Well, it's nice to see it back, even if there was some sacrilege involved in its creation.
Yeah.
Also, I guess I wanted to point out, it's nice to see, and this is what happens, even though we're only 12 episodes in, so many things happen sometimes and you forget power sets the heroes have, but it's nice to see Lupin Red use the scissors, which gives the sword and the shield and boomerang ability when he's on foot, as opposed to in the mech when they're in Lupin Kaiser, and it becomes a sword and shield thing. It's nice to see him use it on foot again, and for that to be such a big, kind of flashy attack. Always enjoy that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, seeing it kind of clip the trees and then sort of the top of a tree trunk near the end of its attack was pretty sweet. Like, maybe a bummer because I was hoping to see it land on something at the end, but still it was nice.
Yeah.
Did you have any other thoughts or anything that kind of struck you about your experience here, Mello?
It was, I guess, like pinned in understandable structure tropes, kind of. It wasn't off the wall in a way that was like unwelcoming. You know, I liked the acting, I liked the effects. Generally enjoyed it. I'm not as like fish out of water as I expected to be, I guess.
I guess since you're, I don't know if we said this at the beginning, but you're the wizard that put together our kickin' rad theme song. But I guess from a music perspective or an ADR perspective, like what do you have any feelings about what you experienced here on that?
Well, they have the privilege of having a lot of their scenes be able to be fully ADR because, as I remarked very early on, you can't see anyone's mouths in some of the scenes, and the vocals are super crisp, and it would almost be more funny if they were all muffled because they were coming from behind masks. But I think that there's like a major, I guess, component to the show is that this body acting isn't really necessary to just be extremely exaggerated. And do you all know, are there any occasions where the actors in the suits are completely different?
Yes, typically.
Yeah, that's
so
okay.
That they have suit actors that are for this, and some of them are common. Unfortunately, I'm not super familiar with their names, but there are some suit actors that sort of jump between different series. Like, it's typically not the face actor that you see. and this has been the case. They've had basically stuntman or suit actors since. Was this because of Kamen Rider? I've said this as a joke, but that's actually the case, right?
Yeah, that is the case originally with the first Kamen Rider series with that motorcycle accident. So, and that's just, that's the case, especially as the fight choreography has gotten more and more sort of complex and satisfying and sort of physically demanding. I think particularly when Japan Action Club took over, it's the same thing. Like, part of the enjoyment is seeing these long fight scenes that are single takes or don't have as much cutting, whereas if you had, say, sort of an American style Western television program or something like that, where you try to have the actor in the scene, the dramatic actor doing these fights, you have to do a lot of cuts and a lot of editing to make it look like they are fighting, because they don't know how to fight. And who can blame them? Because, a lot of the actors here, the Japanese actors, they don't know how to fight either, but that's why you have suit actors to do the fighting for you, and that's the benefit of having a full face covering mask.
Okay, that totally makes sense.
Well, guys, do we have any other thoughts before we get to Twitter questions?
I did, and it just fell out of my head, so if it comes back, then we'll see where it goes, but...
Okay, so we just got a couple this week from our good buddy Behalai Bebop. How much experience do you have with Showa Toku, and what do you think of the era overall?
I'm gonna say that Showa. So where does Showa land in terms of Super Sentai?
I don't know what the cutoff is. I will look that up real quick using the magic of the internet. Okay, so the Showa period here is obviously starts with Go Ranger the very first, but ends with Live Man.
Oh, geez. Okay, then basically zero experience with Showa era Sentai, but yeah, I would say most of my Showa era stuff is probably going to be Ultraman, like classic Ultraman. I think that still counts.
Oh yeah,
and
totally.
Then a bit of V3 and a bit of Ichigo, but I believe Kamen Rider Black is technically in the Heisei era.
I don't know.
I think that's the case, or at least maybe it's RX.
I'm not sure. I think Heisei starts in the 90s, doesn't it? 1990?
Yeah.
I don't know when Black aired.
Well, that basically my answer is that I'm pretty limited. So that's that's my shame here. But I am interested in it because it's a very sort of different presentation. Oh, you know what? That's sort of not true. My exposure to pre-Black or pre-Kamen Rider Black writers is the manga Kamen Rider Spirits, which my understanding is that sort of captures like the idea of them. Maybe it makes them a little bit more serious than they actually are, but it's I think it sort of distinguishes the writers a little bit and then sort of expands on their ideas in the form of a manga, but that's not quite that. But I'm interested, and I do want to go back and watch one of these sometime.
Yeah, for myself, most of my Showa era experience is not with Super Sentai. I've seen a few. I've seen a few of the episodes from the Showa series, but I've not actually watched any of them. Most of my Showa experience is either Ultraman or the Godzilla franchise or the Gamera franchise, so more leaning in that. And I've not seen any of the Showa era Kamen Rider either. But I'm a big fan of the feel. I mean, it's I guess it's interesting. I guess for me, part of the thing that I appreciate about the Showa era is, we talk about things being toyetic, like obviously, Mello, as you just witnessed in this episode, almost everything that the actors touch is a toy that you can buy, and is very clearly a toy that you can buy. Like, oftentimes they're probably using the toys on set. I guess the nice thing about the Showa era is that the toyetic element wasn't quite so obvious on screen. It was more of what we would consider kind of classic toy elements, like vehicles and things like that. Like, oh, there's the hero, you can probably buy an action figure of the hero. There's the cool plane or the cool car they drive, and you can buy that. But they weren't necessarily holding what was clearly like a plastic toy, that sort of thing. So I do appreciate that, even though I enjoy the modern style too.
For me, I will actually answer this because I also have experience with all the Godzilla Showa movies. I've watched all those, and I like everything about the aesthetic brought about in that period, especially the music. And while we were doing the theme song, I kind of immediately grasped onto that element, especially the horn section.
Yeah,
being the direction I wanted to take it in.
Yeah, there's something very powerful about those Showa trumpets, and stuff like Akira Fukube and his work is just, it's really incredible.
Yep. The best
Very
horns.
appreciative that you brought that element into the theme. Okay, so this other one comes to us from Ansem eBooks. They say, it feels like Sentai as a whole is starting to move away from the classic alternating formula of science show then a fantasy show. What do you think the future of the franchise looks like when it comes to genre selection? It's an interesting one.
It's kind of hard to draw like a pattern from this. I mean, what are we at? We're at Cops and Robbers this year. We had Spacetronauts last year.
Old Spacetronauts. It's a good term for it.
Thanks. What was the year before that? Shoot. Man.
I can't remember what happened last week on this show. No, it is getting... It's quite difficult to tell. Part of me would be like, well, they're going to do what they usually do and just, play it by ear. But the way Kamen Rider Build and the way this show have both consistently defied my expectations, I wonder if they're going to try something at least somewhat different in terms of the genre selection. Maybe we'll see some things we haven't seen before. Even though this is clearly set in the modern day, the cops and robber element has sort of that. It's got something of a 20th century feel, if that makes sense. Just the kind of some of the elements of it. So maybe we'll see more things that are more, I guess, period pieces is maybe what I'm looking for. More time frames rather than specific, like, broader genres, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, looking it up quickly here, before last year's space theme, we had animals, and the year before that they did ninjas again. So animals and ninjas are pretty rote, I think, in terms of what they'll do thematically. But the year before that they did Tokyoger, which is trains.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's too early to do animals and ninjas again, so I'm hoping for something strange or something different or something weird. They're all dead. They're all going to be ghosts next year.
What if they were Ghostbusters? That'd be fun.
I will take it.
What was I don't remember if it pans out for Go-Go 5, but because I haven't seen that yet. But Lightspeed Rescue, where they were all emergency personnel who also fought demons under the city. I really, really like that combination of weird themes. That works really well for me.
Yeah, make it interesting.
So this comes to us from Alex, Ajax Ranger. What are your thoughts on Sentai summer movies, and would you rather them be longer like Kamen Rider ones?
I'm not that familiar with that structure. I'm usually to be fair, most of the movies I watch that have Sentai in them tend to be like the crossover ones, which I mean, I don't think have a very good track record, to say the least. I don't know how well they're integrated. I feel like they end up being like sort of spin-offs or sort of just like one-shot stories that have nothing necessarily to do with the plot of it versus the Rider series movies. But I don't know if you have more experience with this.
No, I've seen more of the Rider movies than I have the Sentai movies. So, but yeah, those tend to be kind of integrated into the plot, or at least they're kind of more like handoffs or something. For Sentai, I don't.
Or the true ending. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, right.
Don't do this. I'm gonna be. It's gonna pain me. I'm gonna be physically in pain if Build's ending ends up being in the movie, summer movie.
I mean, who knows? That would hurt me too. But what are you gonna do? I mean, I guess my thing with movies in general is, I really don't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I enjoy. I guess I enjoy side stories. I like stories that I guess I prefer for the series to be the series. As soon as you start bringing in things like, well, I mean, yeah, you watched the series, but did you watch the movie? Or did you read the tie-in comic? Or did you read the novel that included more info? Like, I really don't like that kind of thing. Like, I understand why they do it across all media. I mean, American media does this plenty of times, where you have to have seen these other elements to really get the full picture. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I prefer stories that can inform me more about the narrative. Like, there's a reward to watching it. Like, it's included, but that it's not necessary to complete the story that is the series. Like, I don't care for that. Like you're saying, I don't want the real ending to be somewhere else. I don't want to have to watch the movie to understand, wait, what happened between this episode and that episode. I completely don't understand what's going on anymore. I don't really care for that sort of thing.
Right.
Would they do that because of like budget constraints, or I'm just thinking about how or why other media does it.
I think it's because the sort of the way that these shows work, where I don't think they have any expectation of having to cater to an external audience or really worrying about us out here, not in Japan.
Oh, definitely.
So Yeah, so for the kid, this is really for the kids, and this is really for their, their big winter blockbuster or their spring movie or summer blockbuster. That's sort of their local hero thing. The variety or sort of how much they decide to integrate it into the plot or make sure it matters or doesn't matter. I think it depends on how well the show's doing there, and then they're like, well, we can make it fold in, but they will also keep it in a way sort of that they can continue on anyway. That happened with Build for sure. By the way, there's some stuff that carries over into the show that they kind of do like a little. By the way, in the movie they did this. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, okay, just a local production thing, I guess.
Yeah. Alrighty.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, think so. Alright, so do we want to make our special announcement now and discuss that before we sign off tonight?
Yes. Big news. We'll be changing our release schedule from a weekly to a bi-weekly. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. No, yeah. The weekly format's really good. It allows us to just to do one episode per week, but scheduling wise, it's becoming a little difficult. Not just because looking to the future, can we guarantee we can record every single week? That weekly schedule, we sort of lock ourselves in almost indefinitely. But it also, as we've talked about doing special episodes and things like that, it's made it difficult to try to schedule. Okay, we have to do the normal 4 shows a month. And then also we want to do other stuff too, because we don't want this show to just be about Lupinranger versus Patranger, even though we're still loving that and we're still going to cover it. So We're switching to a bi-monthly format. We'll go every 2 weeks, and one episode of the month will definitely be... Let me put it this way. We're still working on the format a little bit, and we'll announce that more in detail on Twitter and also as the episodes come out. The current plan is to do one episode that is our currently airing show, like our Lupinranger vs. Patranger. It'll probably just be Pat and I, and we'll cover whatever 4 episodes that have been since the last time. And then the next episode of the month will be something else, either a special interview, it'll be a reflection on a favorite series, just whatever it may be. And that format is certainly subject to change, but we want to keep up with Lupinranger vs. Patranger. We don't want to give up on that, but we also love a lot of other things in Toku. And if we just stick to the weekly schedule is tough to maintain, and if we just stick to just covering a weekly episode every week, well, we'll only ever talk about 2 shows a year, ultimately, like maybe 3, right?
Pretty much.
So,
yeah. And just sort of stuff on the side.
Yeah.
But what I do want to do is I do want to keep sort of the pace or have something for people to check out. So on the off weeks, we will be doing, depending on whatever, probably just me. We'll be doing like a stream of something that we're working on, like, because I want to do, or I'm really interested in sort of the visual aspect of Super Senpai. So we have some sort of fun things that we've been working on in the background, and you know what? We'll throw it up on a stream, and y'all can come chill stream and hang out if you want.
Yeah.
But I'll leave the VODs up on Twitch. I don't know if we'll make a separate channel for it, or we'll just use my existing one. There's really nothing on there, so we'll see.
All right. Well, so yeah, we're looking forward to bringing that out to you guys. And Mello, thanks so much for being on with us.
Of course. It was great.
And of course, thanks for making our music. It was great. Our theme is wonderful.
Is this the first? This isn't the first episode that uses it.
No.
Okay.
No. We've been using it for 2 or 3 episodes.
Eons. No, I have no idea. I lose track.
But if folks want to tune in and check out the rest of your really awesome music, support you on Bandcamp and all that, where would they go?
So my artist name is 2 Mello. It's number 2 in Mello without a W. And you can find my music at 2mellomakes.bandcamp.com.
Fantastic. And then they can also find you on SoundCloud, right?
Yeah. I don't like SoundCloud. Yeah, they can find me there. SoundCloud.com/2mello. Yeah, hopefully that site will last for the rest of 2018.
Oh, jeez. Really?
It's going rough over there.
Oh, boy.
We'll see.
Yeah, I keep hearing things about SoundCloud.
Maybe Sentai can save it.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to save.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Of course. Bring me on when you have the episode where we trash SoundCloud.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to the Super Senpai Podcast. We'll notice you again next time.
Super Senpai Podcast.